We're told that UV light from the sun is dangerous, that it ages us, damages our skin, causes disease. But in 1903, a man named Niels Ryberg Finsen won the Nobel Prize for using full-spectrum sunlight to heal people. Hospitals in the Swiss Alps had sun decks built into the architecture, not for relaxation, but for treatment. The practice had a name, heliotherapy. So the question isn't whether the sun can heal. That's already been answered. The question is, how did we forget? For most of human history, we didn't manage our sunlight exposure. We lived seamlessly within it. We woke up with it, moved under it, and slept when it disappeared. This was the circadian context of our diurnal species. Here's what most people were never taught. There are cells in your eyes that have nothing to do with vision. They don't help you see color or help you read. They exist for one reason: to detect light for the circadian system. Specifically, the quality and timing of full-spectrum sunlight. These cells contain a blue light-sensitive protein known as melanopsin, and they send light information to your master circadian clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That master clock manages everything downstream within your body, your hormones, metabolism, immune function, even DNA repair. Every system is downstream of that process. When people say light affects your health, they are underselling it. Full-spectrum sunlight is the primary circadian cue that tells your body what time it is and what to do next. And then, we broke the circadian system. For the first time in human evolution, we moved indoors. We replaced sunlight with artificial light, biased towards blue and green light in isolation. Bright days became dim, and dark nights became bright. And what nobody considered is this: you can eat perfectly, train hard, take every supplement on the shelf, and still feel wrong if your circadian system is out of sync. We have a label for this: chronic circadian disruption. This is how most people are living without knowing. Medicine already knew this a century ago. Auguste Rollier ran a clinic in Leysen, Switzerland. His patients had cases where amputation was the expected outcome. He didn't use drugs, he used full-spectrum sunlight in a structured manner. Patients spent hours a day on sun decks at altitude with specific protocols around timing, duration, and progressive exposure. And patients who were expected to lose limbs healed. This was documented, published, and practiced for years, all to be quietly abandoned. Now, there are risks to consider: overexposure, burns, and skin damage within the context of a life that creates chronic circadian disruption. Instead of teaching people how to use sunlight properly, Western scientific reductionism collapsed the message entirely. The first principles of understanding sunlight was replaced with fear, and an entire industry was built on top of that fear. When you hear that UV light from the sun is dangerous enough times, you stop learning how your body actually responds to it. You forget that you were designed for it. You stop adapting to its ever-present influence. Right alongside that fear, sunscreen stopped being a tool and became a belief. A daily default, something you wear to mindlessly check a box, even when the UV index is near 0. And the science behind that fear? A lot of it was built on studies using nocturnal mice or skin cells in a petri dish. Animals covered in fur that evolved to hide from UV light from the sun. Skin cells removed from the complexity of the skin barrier that are designed to proliferate rather than differentiate. In those studies, you shave the fur of a mouse off and blast them with isolated UV light, at doses that no human would ever encounter in nature. And then those results are extrapolated to people, a diurnal species meant for the sun. That is far from high-quality science. This is about seeing the circadian system clearly. When an entire industry is built on flawed assumptions, the product ceases to become about the protection of our health. Higher SPF, stronger claims, more urgency, but never understanding the first principles. Sunlight is full spectrum, and your body evolved to receive that spectrum in circadian alignment. There's a well-known case, a truck driver. Decades on the road, sunlight hit only one side of his face through the window. That side aged dramatically with wrinkles, skin breakdown, and visible asymmetry. But here's what gets left out of that story. Low-emission glass alters the sun's full spectrum in harmful ways. It blocks UVB, reduces red and infrared light, and focuses UVA and blue light in isolation. This is a disaster for the skin barrier, a circadian organ designed for full-spectrum sunlight. For decades, one side of his face got UVA and blue light without the counterbalance. No perfect marriage of short and long wavelengths in circadian alignment. The damage didn't come from sunlight. It came from a broken spectral ratio. And that distinction matters. And then there's the part nobody talks about. The FDA's own studies found that chemical UV filters in sunscreen, like oxybenzone, avobenzone, and octocrylene, absorb into the bloodstream after a single application, at levels exceeding the FDA's own safety threshold. Some of these are documented endocrine disruptors. And here's the circadian angle most people miss entirely. Your skin has its own circadian clocks, which control function and repair of every cell within it. Light-sensing proteins known as opsins in the skin itself. When you coat the surface in chemicals that alter which wavelengths reach those receptors, you disrupt a peripheral clock cue your body is expecting. This is where people get it wrong. They treat sun exposure like it's all or nothing, but the body doesn't work that way. Think of it like exercise. Morning sunlight, heavy in red and infrared light, the UV index is near 0. This is your warm-up. It entrains your master clock and triggers your cortisol awakening response. It primes your melanocytes, the cells that produce pigment. It creates collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid within the skin barrier. It makes protective and moisturizing skin proteins like uracanic acid and filigrin. Sunlight later in the day offers UVA and UVB, which is the stimulus. Vitamin D production, nitric oxide release. The body is prepared for this because the morning warm-up came first. Then, darkness. Melatonin rises, DNA repair pathways activate. Your body does its deepest recovery work at night. Skip the warm-up, go straight into midday intensity, and you get burned. Not because the sun is dangerous, but because the circadian sequence was broken. Even people with the most UV-sensitive skin, redheads, have found that they can expand their level of UV exposure through gradual, circadian-aligned, consistent exposure. Now, their bodies are different. They produce more pheomelanin than eumelanin, which is less photoprotective. That's a genuinely different melanin type which should be respected. But the point stands. Not to the same degree as someone with darker skin, but far beyond what they were told was possible. Not by avoiding the sun, but through developing a circadian relationship with it. Meanwhile, we avoid the sun during the day and bathe in artificial light at night. Phones, screens, LEDs, all enriched in short wavelength isolated blue light that activates melanopsin, the exact photopigment that signals daytime to your brain. You're getting a daytime cue at midnight. Melatonin is suppressed, sleep architecture is ruined, recovery stalls. Anti-cancer defenses become less reliable over time. The problem has always been the wrong light at the wrong time, the wrong spectral cue at the wrong circadian phase. The goal isn't to eliminate protection, it's to rethink it. Instead of relying on complex chemical formulas, there's a growing shift back towards simpler solutions. Mineral-based protection, fewer ingredients. things your body recognizes instead of things it has to process. Protection that acts more like a shield, not a reaction. More like clothing, less like chemistry. So, what does this actually look like? Watch sunrise. Get outside in the morning. Expose as much of your skin to that early morning light spectrum. Enjoy UVA rise, which is key for your hormones and neurotransmitters. Focus on lower UV index times when you first begin. Build exposure gradually over weeks, not in a single afternoon. When protection is needed, use it with intention, not by default. And when the sun goes down, let it go down. Enter dark mode. Apply red filters to all screens. Wear dark orange blue light blockers. Use candlelight and incandescents for your light sources. Let melatonin do its job. The dose matters. The timing matters. The sequence matters. That's circadian thinking. The sun hasn't changed. Your circadian system hasn't changed. But the relationship between them has been severed. Maybe the problem was never the sun. Maybe it was how far we drifted from the circadian cues our bodies were built to receive. For most of human history, the sun wasn't feared. It wasn't managed. It was the original timekeeper. The first circadian cue. The deepest one. The sun is medicine.